Hey, isn't it back yet? How long are you going to keep us waiting? Jeers echoed through the pitch-dark hall. I work part-time at a musical instrument store. Today, the store was hosting a big event, a piano concert. But unfortunately, we got hit by a blackout, leaving the venue in total darkness. 20 minutes had passed without the concert starting, and the audience's irritation and anger were palpable. Enough already! I'm leaving! Several members of the weary audience stood up from their seats when I, a part-time worker, said, "I'll go." Then, I headed towards the piano. I felt my way to the piano in the dark. The keys were hard to see. There was no sheet music. But none of that mattered. I played the keys, one note at a time. And this event would go on to change my life significantly. My name is John, I'm 29 years old. My job is tuning pianos, though I'm just a part-timer at the music store. Some people give me strange looks for choosing part-time work at my age instead of a full-time position. Even so, the store manager, Mike, doesn't push me to change roles and lets me do as I please. He's a very understanding person. One day, Mike introduced me to someone from the company. The store was about to expand its floor space, and this person was brought in from another store to help lead and manage the expansion. "Hi, I'm Jessica. I'll be your new manager, but you all are the experts here. Please show me the ropes." The woman who greeted us in a friendly yet confident manner at the morning meeting was stunningly beautiful. She had fair, healthy skin and shiny short black hair. And she had well-defined features that seemed more suited to a magazine or TV screen than a music store. The other staff and part-time workers were also overwhelmed, but when it came up in conversation later, they were at a loss for words. With "she's beautiful" being the only comment that came to mind. "John, can I see you for a moment?" As I began my rounds checking the pianos, Mike called out to me. Jessica stood beside him. It seemed like he was introducing everyone one by one. "This is John, our part-timer. He's a piano tuner and quite skilled, though he could use a bit more charm." I couldn't help but protest, as Mike shrugged apologetically. "I treat customers politely." I know. That's not what I meant. It's more about having charm." And he tends to be quite guarded. Feeling like I'd just been compared to a wary animal, I got even more annoyed. "I thought I was open with you, Mike. You need to open up to others too, not just me." "Yeah. So, Jessica, if you need anything related to pianos, he's your guy. He's just a part-timer in position, but a true professional in skill. Please don't raise the bar too high." I couldn't say, it hurts when I can't meet expectations and disappoint people, so I just nodded ambiguously and got through the moment. "John, can we talk about the shift the day after tomorrow?" The next day, Jessica came to me right after the morning meeting. "Sure, what's up?" "About your work location the day after tomorrow. Is it a shift to another store?" "No, I want you to come to a concert with me." She handed me a flyer for a concert at a hall in the neighboring city. The organizer was a pianist known by anyone who's ever touched a piano. I'd gone to hear him play several times myself. "Is it work?" "Yes, we need to tune the piano before the rehearsal. Our company is contracted with him." "I see, but why me? Aren't you also a piano tuner?" "Yes, but Mike praised you highly, and I thought it would be a good opportunity for you to gain some experience in a professional setting." Experience. I'm not planning on stepping up in my career, but maybe it has some meaning. Still, even as a part-timer, I'm a member of the company. If gaining experience is part of the policy, I have to comply. Besides, I had no reason to refuse. I wasn't thrilled about going to a concert hall, but if it's work, I had no choice. I nodded, trying not to let on how reluctant I was. On the day of the event, I followed Jessica onto the stage, passing through the bustling hall where only staff were preparing. "Timothy, long time no see. I'm Jessica from Sakura Instruments." "Hey Jessica, looking forward to working with you today." Jessica exchanged greetings with Timothy, the pianist and concert organizer. They seemed to know each other. As Jessica got to work, Timothy looked troubled. "Listen, Jessica, this piano's been acting up lately." "Maybe it's just nerves, but it's been off since the venue changed." As he said this, while stroking the grand piano, it indeed had an unusual tone. The keys themselves weren't in bad shape. Yet each note seemed to flutter unpredictably, like butterflies in the field. Why is this happening with a piano that is being treated normally? More importantly, it was strange for Timothy's piano to be like this. Jessica frowned but immersed herself in the task. How does it sound? Jessica stepped away from the piano, wiping sweat from her brow. Timothy placed his hands on the keys and let his fingers glide. His favorite piece filled the hall, or so it seemed, until he stopped after about 3 measures. Timothy groaned. Jessica's shoulders slumped. Jessica's tuning was impeccable. The sound was coherent. But the core of the notes still seemed scattered. I'm sorry, could I have a bit more time? No, you did well. I'll just adjust it during rehearsal. Hey, Jessica. I couldn't help but whisper to her. If you tune it for a brighter sound, it might help. A brighter sound? That way, the direction of the sound might align better. Wait a minute. Jessica pulled me closer to Timothy. I'm sorry, just a little more time, please. If this doesn't work, we won't charge for the tuning. Well, if you insist. Thank you. Jessica bowed her head and put me in front of the piano. She made some excuse to Timothy about needing assistance and then whispered to me. Give it a try. Me? I'll take responsibility. Reluctantly, I accepted the tuning tools and touched the piano. As soon as I played the keys, the discomfort was evident. The sound was higher and louder than expected. Timothy's remark about the piano being nervous seemed accurate. I focused solely on my fingers and ears, engaging with the piano. I had no idea how much time had passed, but I eventually achieved a satisfactory result. Finally, I whispered to the piano, "It's okay, your sound is the best in the world. I'm done." When I turned around, Jessica and Timothy were staring at me, dumbfounded. Jessica had completely stepped away from the piano. I wondered if it was okay, considering it was supposed to be her tuning the piano. Oh, right. Excuse me. Timothy sat down at the piano. You had such an intense focus. I couldn't interrupt, Jessica said beside me. As soon as she spoke, beautiful melodies flowed from the piano like a song. It seemed the piano's mood had improved. Both Timothy, playing the piano, and Jessica, standing beside me, were wide-eyed, captivated by the music. I too was absorbed in Timothy's performance for a while. After finishing a full piece, Timothy stood up, shook my hand vigorously. You're amazing. You fixed it perfectly. I'm glad you're satisfied. Timothy happily started his second piece and then moved into rehearsal. We sighed with relief and stepped off the stage. Sitting on a bench in the lobby before the audience arrived, I watched the rehearsal on the monitor. I had planned to return to the store afterward, but Timothy insisted I stay and listen, so they arranged a seat for me. Jessica, who bought coffee from the vending machine, handed me a canned drink. Thank you. No, thank you. Jessica sat next to me and sipped her coffee. Even with a canned coffee, she looked like she was in an advertisement, and I watched absent-mindedly. Unbothered by my gaze, she looked back at me. Who are you? What do you mean? I'm a part-timer at Sakura Instruments. No, that's not what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. Jessica pointed at the piano on the monitor. Your tuning skills were extraordinary. I can't believe you're just a part-timer at a music store. It was just a coincidence that I matched well with that piano. No way. Hey, John? A voice called out to me from behind. I turned instinctively and immediately regretted coming here. Seriously, John? Isaac. A classmate from my student days was standing there, leaning on a cart loaded with cardboard boxes. Long time no see. So, you're still involved with pianos, huh? No, I'm doing other work. Other work? Isaac seemed to understand from the bag of tuning tools beside us, nodding exaggeratedly and smirking. Yeah, it makes sense. It'd be impossible for a loser who humiliated himself to still be playing the piano. What are you doing, Isaac? Ignoring his belittling comment, I tried to change the subject. Isaac tapped the cardboard boxes with his finger. Getting ready for the opening. I'm in the same agency as Timothy. Today, I'm in charge of handing out pamphlets at the reception. You know, now that I'm getting recognized, I need to interact with the fans. Being popular keeps me busy. I see. Well, I should get going. Are you staying to listen to Timothy's performance? Yeah, I guess. Then make sure not to feel too inferior. You're always so weak under pressure. Leaving behind a full piece of advice, Isaac walked away. Jessica seemed unsure of what to say, standing beside me. He was a classmate from music college. You went to a music college? There are many who get in. You asked who I was earlier, right? I'm really nobody. But I majored in piano, so I have a good ear. That's all. I see. Not wanting to say more, I fell silent. Jessica didn't press further, and only the sound of the piano through the speakers filled the space. Mike said you don't open up to people. Jessica murmured. But you open up to the piano. Do I open up to the piano? Is that how it looked? I don't play the piano anymore. But why am I still working with pianos? No, I don't want to think about it. Still, her words lingered in my ears. Until the rehearsal ended, I was lost in thought. Our music store, now successfully expanded, decided to hold an event to celebrate the reopening. We were hosting a concert at a nearby hall with a pianist under contract. And the piano used in the performance would be put up for sale. It was all Jessica's idea. I thought it was a bold move, but the pre-event publicity was tremendous, and all the seats were sold out well before the event. I was busy moving around the hall as part of the preparation staff. Of course, the piano tuning for the video was also my responsibility. All right, that should do it. I gave the well-tuned piano a final wipe with a cloth. I hope someone wants you. If anyone saw me talking to a piano, I wondered what they'd think. But Jessica's words about me opening up to the piano still lingered in my mind. It's true, the time spent facing the piano is comforting. Even if I no longer play, I still want others to appreciate the beauty of the piano. So, perhaps her words weren't wrong after all. The rehearsal ended, and the audience began filing into the hall. Despite the heavy rain outside, the hall was nearly full. I stayed backstage, ready to step in, if the piano had any issues during the performance. It was a lucky break to hear the pianist's performances from such a prime spot. The starting buzzer would sound any moment now. Just as I glanced at my watch, everything went dark. What? I looked up and around, but it was pitch black everywhere. The murmurs from the audience began to grow louder. Staff members hurried around the hall with flashlights and phone lights. Attention, everyone! Due to a nearby lightning strike, we are experiencing a blackout. Please be patient while we work on restoring power. A staff member shouted to the audience. A blackout, what a hassle! But with backup generators, the power should be back in no time, within 5 minutes or so. Everyone waited, slightly anxious, in the hall lit only by emergency lights. But the lights didn't come back on. 20 minutes had already passed since the blackout. The backstage area was filled with frustration. Is the power back yet? The backup generator isn't working for some reason. Make another announcement. The staff members exchanged updates around me. Hey, isn't it back yet? How long are you going to keep us waiting? Forget it, I'm leaving. The audience started getting restless, with occasional angry shouts directed at the stage and the staff. Some people had already left their seats and headed to the lobby. There was still no sign of the power returning. This isn't good. Should we start? But performing in this situation. I could hear Jessica and Mike discussing nearby. The pianists we had today could play in a blackout, and they could play even with their eyes closed. But that wasn't the issue. Using the pianists, who were invited for this special event, just to calm the audience was the problem. We didn't want to disrespect them. But at this rate, the concert would be a disaster. John. Mike called my name in a strained voice. I knew immediately what he wanted. He wanted me to perform. I can't do it. I haven't played in years. But you've been listening to piano music all this time. That's Mike knew why I had stopped playing the piano. He had never once pushed me to return, yet now, in this situation, a person who loves the piano like you can't be unable to play. I'd been waiting for the day you'd return to the stage. But why now, of all times? I saw it as a chance. A chance? The stage is completely dark now. No one will know it's you, nor would they think it's you. Because of the blackout. No one expects a perfect performance. Even if a child played, they'd be satisfied. That's. Mike was lowering the bar as much as possible to give me the courage to step up. John. Jessica tapped me on the shoulder. Actually, I've heard you play before. I asked Mike to let me listen. What? Just once. The piece you played in a competition when you were in high school. That piece. I really like that piece. Could you play it for me? Her casual tone naturally pushed me forward. Jessica's voice shielded me from the jeers coming from the audience as she escorted me to the piano. You added a personal touch to the opening, right? It was fantastic. That was just a kid's arrangement. Well, I was mesmerized. Jessica sat down and opened the lid of the piano keys. It seemed she intended to listen to my performance from beside me. So, I'm playing for Jessica now. There are no other people in this space. With that thought, my fingers started to glide over the keys naturally. Immediately, the noise in the hall disappeared, leaving only the sound of the piano. The audience wasn't there. It was just me and Jessica. A familiar piece of classical music I'd played countless times. Even though I hadn't played in years, my fingers, arms, and feet remembered. This phrase was one of my favorites. I added the arrangement Jessica requested. This part was a bit challenging, but it was incredibly beautiful. One after another, the structure of the songs raced through my mind. Memories of the enjoyable times back then came flooding back. Despite the hiatus, playing the piano filled the gap. Thank you, you truly are a wonderful piano. Just a little longer, please stay with me. I surrendered to the piano, drifting in a sea of sound. How comfortable this is. I want to stay immersed in it longer. I reluctantly played the final phrase. As I lifted my hands from the keys, a brilliant white light enveloped me. I instinctively closed my eyes, squinting them open after a moment. At that instant, the hall was filled with thunderous applause. I looked up to see the audience, standing, clapping, and whistling. What? What was this applause for? What was I doing just now? Oh, right, there was a blackout, and I played the piano, and now the power's back? Oh no! I hurriedly stood up and ran to the stage wings. But then, I stopped abruptly. John! Mike looked worried, and Jessica was running after me. I turned my back to them and faced the audience. I bowed deeply before finally retreating to the stage wings. Thank you so much for today. After my performance, the concert had resumed successfully. I was in a daze until Jessica and Mike pulled me out after cleanup. In the now calm dressing room, I drank some tea to soothe my parched throat. After the concert, there were so many inquiries about who the pianist was that played in the dark. But I kept your name a secret. Should I have told them? No way. I don't want the attention. I understand how you feel. Still, today's performance was truly amazing. It was because of you, Jessica. You listening by my side helped me play. I didn't do anything. If anything, I dragged you out against your will. Even so, you helped me forget the audience so I could play. Can I tell you something? I started to explain how I ended up where I am now. I had been playing the piano since kindergarten and continued through high school without losing interest. By the time I entered music college, I was already known in the industry as a student pianist. I got my piano tuning certification around that time. I wanted to be able to tune the piano I played myself. At the beginning of college, I was unstoppable, winning every competition I entered. Some even called me a genius pianist. I was happy to be highly evaluated, but what I enjoyed most was seeing the audience's reactions to my playing. However, as I was about to graduate, I hit a wall. That wall was Isaac. He was a classmate from the same college, and we knew each other. When I accidentally heard his performance at a competition, it gave me goosebumps. His bold and rough yet delicate rhythm was captivating. Though he had been unknown until then, he began to emerge as a late bloomer. He also had a piano tuning certification, and his competition results were soon on par with mine, leading to frequent comparisons. When we competed in the same contest, Isaac won first place. Meanwhile, I didn't even make second place, and I ended up in 10th. In our first shared competition, he showcased his superior talent. I was shaken, and instead of enjoying playing the piano, I started obsessing over rankings, fearing another significant defeat by him. At college, everyone knew the competition results immediately. It was impossible not to care. And my piano, played without joy, couldn't be accepted. I became terrified of performing in front of people. Even if I enjoyed playing during practice, my performances were terrible in front of an audience. I made repeated, impossible mistakes, and one day, I even got jeered during a performance. Since then, performing in front of people has been a traumatic experience, and I became reluctant to draw any attention at all. Naturally, my reputation plummeted. Friends I thought I had began treating me coldly. It turned out my relationships were merely based on my fame. Not everyone was like that, but I became paranoid, unsure of what others truly thought of me. Even those who smiled on the surface might have felt contempt for me. As a result, I avoided getting close to people, fearing intimacy. I see. I'm sorry for making you talk about such a painful experience. Jessica looked sad after hearing my story. No, I'm sorry for burdening you with my story. Why apologize? I'm glad you shared it with me. It means you've opened your heart to me, even if just a little, right? Well, Jessica was right. Talking about my trauma meant I wanted her to know. And somehow, it didn't feel bad that she knew. She had made it possible for me to play the piano again, after all. Was it because you couldn't see how others were looking at you that you could play earlier? That means it's a battle within yourself whether you can play in the future. A battle within myself. Yes, you said the audience's reaction was your favorite part, right? Then you can't ignore the audience's presence. Her words struck me. Indeed, even if I was scared of the audience, what I sought was their reaction. Therefore, the real fight isn't with the jeering audience but with myself. Hey, I have a suggestion. Jessica showed me a video on her phone. The screen was dark, but I recognized it as my performance from earlier. Today's concert allowed recording, right? Timothy recorded this video and wants to post it on social media if you agree. What's the purpose? Would there even be a demand for a performance by an unknown pianist in the dark? Of course, we want many people to hear this amazing performance. We'll keep your name anonymous and hide your face. But I want you to see the reactions and comments on the posted video to see how many people are moved by your performance. Do you think it'll work? I guarantee it. Just as she said, the video garnered a lot of attention. The video, titled A Masterpiece in the Dark During a Power Outage, received numerous praise comments. Have you accepted it now? Your piano playing can entertain people. Jessica proudly showed me the comments. She also mentioned that there were interview requests about the video. Startled, I had no choice but to nod. As I recalled the events of that day during the interviews, I felt a renewed desire to play the piano again. When I consulted Jessica, she happily proposed several opportunities for performances. Starting with small local competitions, through various connections, I gradually became accustomed to performing in front of people. Each performance, where I could feel the audience's reactions directly, was enjoyable, and I kept participating one after another. By then, it was revealed that I was the pianist in the dark performance, and soon, the name John the Pianist became widely known. Then, I was invited to be a guest at a concert hosted by Timothy. I owed him so much, so I couldn't thank him enough. After rehearsal, I was chatting with Jessica in the lobby when Isaac naturally approached to greet us. He was the reason I had stopped playing, but the issue was my lack of skill. Though his words were harsh, I couldn't bring myself to dislike him, so I responded without dwelling on past trauma. So, you're performing today? Yeah, thanks to Timothy. Are you performing too, Isaac? No, I'm backstage today. By the way, I heard you have a concert coming up with Sakura Instruments? If you let me know, I could perform too. Oh, right. Jessica interrupted Isaac's sales pitch, clapping her hands as if remembering something. I finally found out about you. The problem with Timothy's piano before, that was your doing, wasn't it? What? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Apparently, he interrupted another tuner working on Timothy's piano, claiming he'd do it because he was from the same agency. No one dared to stop him because he had some standing in the agency. And according to those who witnessed it, he tuned the piano to suit his playing style. What? No wonder the sound was so off. Isaac and Timothy's playing styles are entirely different. Why would you do that? Probably, he decided to shift to being a tuner before his declining skills became apparent. This isn't just my guess. And it's based on information from the agency as well. Ah. It seemed to have hit the mark. Thanks to you, I almost messed up in front of Timothy. John saved the day. But this could damage our credibility, so I reported it to the agency. And by the way, you have a terrible reputation among the office girls. They all make unpleasant faces when your name comes up. Forcing dates. Inappropriate touching, bad-mouthing Timothy. I reported all that too. No way. Isaac's face turned pale. Maybe that's why he's backstage today. Maybe you had some talent at one point, but you got too arrogant. Why don't you start from scratch? I recommend working part-time at a music store. In the end, Isaac's contract wasn't renewed, and rumors spread within the small industry, making it hard for him to find a new place. I heard that, perhaps influenced by Jessica's advice, he ended up working part-time at another music store to make a living. As for me, I'm still with Sakura Instruments. I become a full-time tuner at Sakura Instruments while occasionally holding concerts. Don't you actually want to pursue a career as a full-time pianist? Jessica asked, looking concerned. I replied, I also play to perform for you, so I don't intend to leave Sakura Instruments. Seeing Jessica blush at my words made me realize what I had just said. Oh, that's not what I meant. Of course, I want others to hear my music too, but it's mainly because you, Jessica, helped me overcome my trauma. And it makes me happy that you're there. No matter what I said, it sounded like a love confession, so I finally gave in and asked her out. She accepted easily, and within less than a year, we were married. Finally, you've opened your heart not just to the piano but to me as well. Seeing her smile so happily made me realize that the piano isn't just a means to compete, but something to bring joy to people. It took me a long time to realize the obvious, but from now on, I want to cherish both my feelings and the piano. You should go to a rural clinic. We can't keep someone who has committed such misconduct at a university hospital. As the head of surgery at the university hospital, I've long been seen as a rival by the director's son, Stephen. And now, in front of the director, Harold, Stephen is falsely accusing me of misconduct. I didn't do anything like that. I protested to Harold, but he wouldn't listen. Anyway, we have all the evidence. We don't want to make a big deal out of this, so we'll keep it quiet. However, Kyle, you will have to take responsibility. You'll be sent to a rural area. No way. Harold is protecting Stephen and seems determined to demote me. Stephen grinned wickedly as he watched me panic. Ha ha. Kyle, you can go plow some fields. You filthy quack. And so, I was unjustly transferred from the university hospital to a rural clinic. But at that time, no one knew yet. The people who framed me were going to face a severe reckoning. My name is Kyle Turner. I'm a surgeon working at a university hospital in Tokyo. Ever since I was a child, I was skilled with my hands and had a strong curiosity. To satisfy my thirst for knowledge, I entered the surgical department after graduating from medical school. Following my entry, I followed a senior doctor I respected and gained experience with many different cases. I've performed over 50,000 surgeries and am rumored to be a candidate for the next professor. Patients speak highly of me, and thanks to word of mouth, patients are referred to me from not just nearby hospitals but also from rural areas. As a result, I've been entrusted with the role of head of surgery. Dr. Turner, the patients you operated on have been getting out of bed quickly, which is really surprising. Their discharge times are also fast. So the bed turnover rate is excellent, which really helps us. Smiling as she spoke to me was Rachel, the head nurse of the surgical ward. Thank you. Well, it's always better for patients if they can be discharged sooner. My surgeries are known for being quick and meticulous. Because the incisions are small, there is little bleeding. Recently, I've been performing many endoscopic surgeries, which further shortens the hospitalization period. As the head of surgery, I have to consider the number of surgeries and bed turnover rates, but in my case, these results naturally improved as I focused on providing less burdensome medical care to patients. In short, my reputation improved unintentionally. However, the one who doesn't like me is Stephen Scott, the director's son. Stephen is the deputy head of surgery and has some decent skills. But having grown up spoiled because he's the director's son, his attitude towards patients and staff is arrogant, and complaints are constant. Dr. Turner, a request has come from Natalie in room 2 to change her primary doctor from Dr. Scott to you. When asked why, she said Dr. Scott's attitude is terrible and he doesn't listen to her at all. Additionally, he tried to force her to use a new experimental drug. She absolutely refused, but he threatened her, saying he wouldn't treat her otherwise. What should we do? Rachel asked, looking troubled. These kinds of complaints about Stephen are endless. I see. I'll talk to Stephen about it. Even if I subtly criticized Stephen, he wouldn't listen at all. Huh? Listening to the complaints of elderly patients in a shared room won't get you anything. I'm offering them a new drug out of kindness. And they have the nerve to refuse? How presumptuous of those poor people. According to him, the problem wasn't his fault but the envy of poor patients. I can't understand how he interprets things to reach such an overbearing conclusion. By the way, Kyle, I heard you met with the pharmaceutical company's sales representative about the experimental drug the other day? Yes, they came to collect last month's data, so I spoke with them briefly as they were leaving. Oh. You let us handle the data collection and just take the credit for yourself. Typical Kyle. Saying I only take the credit is unfair. My patients are also participating in the trial. It's natural to check the data and report the results. Well, if you say so, for now. Stephen made a suspicious remark and left, but I didn't pay much attention to it as it was usual for him. However, one day, I was called by Harold and accused of something outrageous. I received a notice to come to the director's office on a hot summer afternoon. When I opened the door to the director's office, there were Harold and Stephen. Kyle, I had high hopes for you, but this time you've done something unforgivable. Harold, I'm not sure what you mean. When I was bewildered by the sudden accusation, Stephen interjected. We already know that you have been illegally using experimental drugs and inflating data. And that you received money from the pharmaceutical company's sales representative as a cooperation fee. What? What are you talking about? I have never done such a thing. In fact, it's Stephen who has been trying to use experimental drugs without the patient's consent, right? I directly appealed to Harold. But beside him, Stephen had a twisted smile on his face. No. That clinical coordinator and the pharmaceutical sales representative testified that you threatened them into cooperating, Kyle. I would never commit such fraud. Anyway, we have all the evidence. We don't want to make a big deal out of this. You will have to take responsibility quietly. No way. Of course, I would never engage in such misconduct. This is clearly Stephen's conspiracy and false accusation. That's why poor people are troublesome. You committed fraud to get money, used it to curry favor, and climbed to the top. An incompetent poor person like you should just retreat to the countryside and farm. And so, I was unwillingly demoted from the university hospital to a rural clinic. News of my demotion spread quickly. Dr. Turner. I heard about it. This is an unbelievable injustice. Kimberly, the head nurse of the surgical ward, said angrily. However, if I openly resisted Harold, it would be terrible if Kimberly and the nurses were fired. I didn't want to cause them trouble because of me. Thank you. I'm just happy you believe in me. Well, I think of this as an opportunity to reflect on myself in a place with fresh air. Dr. Turner. Kimberly looked sad, and the other nurses also looked at me with sorrow. On the day I left the university hospital, not only the patients but also the nurses and doctors who were not part of Stephen's faction were sad to see me go. In the car moving to the rural clinic, I quietly cried, unnoticed by anyone. My new workplace was located in a scenic spot between famous mountain ranges and upstream of a river. Although it sounds picturesque, it was a hiking area with hot springs and inns, with a population of a few hundred. Less than the number of beds at the university hospital. The clinic had an old doctor named Nick and a nurse in her late 20s named Sophia. Nick had a very laid-back personality, often chatting with patients for an hour and generally lacking motivation. Sophia hardly spoke more than necessary and watched TV in the waiting room in silence, resting her chin on her hand. The patients visiting the clinic mainly had colds, stomachaches, or minor injuries, so it was very quiet. On rainy days, not a single patient came, and Nick and Sophia would have tea and snacks. The relaxed and slow atmosphere was almost unbearable for someone like me, who had been working in the fast-paced environment of a university hospital. "Are there any patients today?" When I asked Sophia, she replied with an exasperated look. "This isn't a university hospital in the city. Few patients is a sign of peace. Just because you're bored doesn't mean you should wish for more patients. Besides, even if patients come, you can't treat them alone." It seemed that as a doctor demoted from a university hospital, I was not trusted to treat patients. Oh, staying here won't accomplish anything. Thinking that, I decided to leave the clinic and visit the village. "Excuse me, I'm stepping out for a bit." "Alright, take care." As I left the clinic, the two of them looked at each other with resigned expressions. "Hey Nick, how long do you think Dr. Turner will last?" "I'll bet $100 on 1 month." I think 1 month is the limit too." Stepping outside the clinic, I couldn't help but exclaim at the stunning scenery in front of me. Wow, the river water really looks drinkable. The river reflected the mountains and sparkled, highlighting the blue sky. The transparency of the water, clear to the bottom, showed its cleanliness. Descending the mountain path towards the houses, the gaps between them were unusually long. The nearest house to the clinic was several miles away, making the journey a laborious task without a car. I only saw elderly people, with hardly any young people around. "Hello?" When I called out to the first villager, he returned a nod of surprise. "Oh, are you here for hiking? You seem lightly equipped for that." "No, I just started at the clinic here 2 days ago. My name is Kyle." "Ah, so you're the new doctor? Thank you for coming to such a remote place. But you won't stay long, will you?" "Doctors who come here leave soon. I've lost count of how many have come and gone." "Is that so? But I want to help everyone, so you don't need to worry. Is there anything you're struggling with?" "Well, I've had a bad back for a while now." "Back pain, huh? If you don't mind, may I take a look?" After that, I started visiting the village houses, greeting people and asking about their health. To my surprise, I found that many elderly people far from the clinic needed care, and the community was helping each other. Some clearly had illnesses, and I promised to visit them regularly. You might wonder why they don't come to the clinic despite their poor health, but for elderly people with physical ailments, walking several miles along the mountain paths is very difficult. Sometimes family members or neighbors request house calls, but by then, the symptoms are often severe. Since I technically worked at the clinic, I visited those needing treatment during the day as house calls. For others, I decided to visit their homes after clinic hours. From then on, as soon as clinic hours ended, I would head out to the village. Nick and Sophia, sipping tea, seemed puzzled that I hadn't given up yet. "Ah, it's been a month since Dr. Turner came here. He seemed bored at first, but now he's strangely enthusiastic and doesn't seem like he'll quit." Sophia muttered resentfully. Nick replied with amusement. "Well, who knows? Maybe Kyle is reaching his limit. He's been fiddling with some equipment in the back room, doing side jobs. Young folks these days lack motivation. They quit as soon as they're bored. No perseverance." A villager who came to get medication for a family member overheard their conversation and chimed in. Are you talking about Dr. Turner? Nick, you're mistaken. Dr. Turner visits village houses after work. Kyle does? Yes. Just the other day, an old man at Sean's house choked on some food. Fortunately, Dr. Turner was there and prevented it from becoming serious. Really? People often don't come for checkups because they have trouble walking or because the clinic is closed after they finish work. That's why your house calls are so appreciated. I see. Nick and Sophia were surprised by what they heard from the villager. Indeed, the villagers often complained about the difficulty of reaching the clinic. But they assumed that those who didn't come weren't serious enough to visit. The next day, Nick suddenly spoke to me when I arrived at the clinic. I heard you've been visiting village houses lately? Yes. Many people have trouble walking up to the clinic. Visiting them, I found many with untreated conditions like high blood pressure and diabetes. I thought it would be better to visit them directly than to let their conditions worsen. You're a peculiar one. Nick turned his face away abruptly. Apparently, my visits to the villagers' houses had been discovered. I thought I might get scolded but wasn't told off. Since then, on days with few patients, I was allowed to leave early for house calls. One day, as I was getting used to life in the village, a rumor spread that a TV station was coming to cover this famous hiking spot. The locals were used to TV crews, having been filmed once or twice a year. Not knowing much about the TV coverage of hiking, I asked Sophia, who was familiar with the media. TV crews can only drive up to the trailhead, right? To film the hiking scenes, they have to carry heavy equipment. I might try hiking myself on my next day off. When I mentioned my interest in hiking, Sophia looked me up and down and said, Dr. Turner, don't underestimate hiking. Someone as scrawny as you can't handle it. When Sophia said that, I gave a wry smile and left the clinic to start my afternoon house calls. I had become quite accustomed to life in the village, and the peaceful flow of time no longer made me feel inexplicable anxiety. I felt I could now face people in my own way. After finishing an examination at a house at the foot of the mountain, I stepped outside to find it was raining heavily. Wow, this doesn't look like it'll stop anytime soon. I'm glad I brought my rain gear. The mountain weather can change quickly. It was sunny a moment ago, but sudden rain is common here. Downpours are frequent, and I had gotten used to the changing weather over the past 3 months. Walking around in the rain is dangerous, so I decided to head back to the clinic. As I hurried along the familiar path, I noticed it was blocked by a landslide. Ha! Could it be a landslide? If so, I need to go back and contact the police. Just then, I saw someone frantically waving their hand ahead. Please, someone help. Our group got caught in the landslide, and some of my companions are injured. What? How many people are caught? I asked in surprise, and the woman, who seemed to be part of a TV crew, said there were 10 people, including herself. But she was the only one who managed to escape the landslide. Despite the poor visibility due to the rain, I could see one person lying at the bottom of the slope, 2 in the middle, and 6 on the other side of the landslide. I immediately contacted the ambulance, the clinic, and the police station. Then ran towards the other side of the landslide with the female crew member. Upon checking the condition of the people lying there, most had bruises and external injuries. But none appeared to be in life-threatening condition. The problem was the people lying below. They likely had head injuries and were losing body heat in this rain. Rescue was a race against time. Hey, is the landslide here? Tell me the situation. Nick, Sophia, paramedics, and police officers arrived on the scene one after another. I informed Nick and Sophia about the 6 people on the other side and went to rescue the man at the bottom of the slope. The 2 people lying in the middle had multiple fractures in their legs, arms, and ribs, making it difficult for them to move on their own. Hey! These 2 have severe fractures. They can't move by themselves. We need stretchers. I shouted and continued toward the man further down. This man was still partly buried in the mud, with severe bruises and cuts all over his body. He had multiple external injuries and was bleeding. He was barely conscious, breathing shallowly, and needed urgent medical attention. We need help removing the mud here. And get a stretcher and a set of hemostatic tools. Also, an emergency kit. I called out to the paramedics and the local fire brigade. While trying to stop the bleeding and administer fluids with the tools I had on hand, I kept encouraging the man. "Are you okay? Help is on the way. Hang in there. It hurts. I can't take it anymore." "That's not true. If I don't make it, give this to my daughter." Inside the plastic bag he handed me, there was a photo of a bluebee taken in these mountains. The bluebee is said to bring good luck to those who see it. It's a rare bee that only lives in pristine mountains, gathering on the autumn Japanese sage, and it's a species rarely seen in the country. I remembered it had recently become popular among young female hikers. He probably took the photo because his daughter asked him to if he saw the bluebee. "Give her this, tell her to be happy." He seemed to be asking me to deliver the photo and message to his daughter if something happened to him. But I wasn't going to let that happen. He would survive and give the photo to his daughter himself. "You're going to give this photo to your daughter yourself. Don't worry. I'll save you." "Really, can you save me?" "I will. Trust me." "Okay, please. Hang in there. Help is almost here." With the help of the local fire brigade and paramedics, we managed to free the man from the mud, but he had an open fracture in his leg. The bleeding was severe. Just then, we received a call that the general hospital in the town, about an hour's drive away, could take him. However, transporting him would take too long, and his condition was too critical to wait. 2 hours round trip to the hospital. That won't do. "Nick, can I use the operating room in the back?" I asked Nick. "Go ahead, but that room isn't equipped for a proper operation. I don't even know if the machines will work properly. They haven't been maintained in a while." "It's fine. I've been doing some maintenance just in case. I know how to use everything. Please let me use it." As it turns out, I had discovered an unused operating room in the back of the clinic and spent a considerable amount of time checking the machines and gradually bringing them back to working order. So, that's what Kyle was doing secretly every day. If that's the case, Sophia can assist you. Until last year, Sophia was a surgical nurse at a university hospital in Tokyo. She'll do a great job. All right. Sophia, I'm counting on you. Yes. Nick and the locals will help here. Everyone said they wanted to support you, Dr. Turner, who always cares for them, so they all gathered. The local women's association includes former nurses who once worked at the district's general hospital. Now retired, they volunteer locally while also working in agriculture. If you need anything, just let us know. You can count on us like we're a big ship. The women from the association said with reliable smiles like motherly figures. Thank you so much. Nick, who used to specialize in surgery, skillfully performed sutures, while the firefighters and everyone else took care of the other injured people. Let's get started. Yes. The rest happened quickly. I began the operation on the man with the open leg fracture, working on the fracture site first, then suturing the other injuries. Normally, a procedure that would require 4 to 5 people, including an anesthesiologist, was handled by Sophia and me efficiently, finishing the operation in just over an hour. That was fast. Sophia was amazed at my work. Leaving the post-operative care to Sophia, I returned to Nick and helped with the remaining patients. Kyle, have you already finished the operation? Yes. If we had better equipment and more people, we could have done it faster. But this was the best we could do here. Faster? How short do your operations usually take? Nick was astonished at my suturing speed. By the time the ambulance from the general hospital at the foot of the mountain arrived, all the patients had been treated. The man who had surgery and those with fractures were transported to the general hospital just in case. Those with minor injuries were accommodated in a local inn and would be examined again tomorrow before being transported to town by a minibus. Dr. Turner, your surgery was really amazing. I've never seen such efficient work even at the university hospital. Sophia, who assisted me, explained in detail to Nick everything that happened during the surgery. After hearing her, Nick spoke to me with a serious expression. Finishing that operation in an hour while managing anesthesia and monitoring? You must have several brains. I handled many surgeries in my youth. But I couldn't do that. Even if you were called the best doctor in Japan, I wouldn't be surprised. Who exactly are you, Kyle? Nick's astonishment left me unsure how to respond. Feeling I could trust these two, I shared the story of my demotion from the university hospital. I explained how Harold and Stephen targeted me, falsely accusing me of taking bribes and manipulating experimental drug data. I was forced to take the blame and was transferred to this clinic as a result of this unjust situation. I was the head of surgery. I performed many operations and had a good reputation among patients. People came to me from all over. And I was considered a candidate for the next professor. Stephen, especially, resented me. With the professor selection coming up in a few years, he wanted to eliminate me beforehand. That's why he falsely accused me and got me expelled from the university hospital. What a terrible situation. Nick was deeply shocked by my story. But now I like this clinic. I've realized that a university hospital isn't the only place to practice medicine. As long as I'm motivated, I can treat patients anywhere, under any circumstances. I said confidently, but Nick slowly shook his head. No, Kyle. You're too skilled to be here. This clinic has been a refuge for young doctors who cause trouble at university hospitals. So far, we've only had real troublemakers. They threw tantrums and quit quickly, saying they couldn't work in such a remote place. But you're different. With your knowledge and skills, you shouldn't be stuck here. There are many patients who truly need your expertise. You should return to where your skills are most needed. Nick's words made sense. But I didn't want to return to where those who had framed me were. Sophia watched us with a complex expression. For a moment, a heavy silence filled the examination room. Then someone knocked on the door. When I invited them in, it was the woman from the TV crew. Thank you so much for saving our staff. You all saved our lives. Without you, we don't know what would have happened. The person Dr. Turner operated on is my mentor. Since I joined the TV station as a rookie, he has taken care of me like family. If he hadn't survived, I don't think I could have lived with the guilt of being the only one saved. Tears welled up in her eyes as she spoke. I can't thank you enough. I overheard your conversation earlier. Is there anything we can do to help? Please, let us assist you in any way we can. She bowed deeply. Thank you. I just did what any doctor would, but I'm glad you feel that way. If we need help, I won't hesitate to ask. For now, please rest with the others. Yes, thank you. I was genuinely happy that my actions had saved her and her colleagues. Up until now, no matter how many patients I treated, it was just part of the job, something expected of me. Though the landslide was an accidental occurrence, it felt incredibly fortunate that we could save many people in this place with limited equipment and staff, all working together. As I pondered this, Nick sat in the clinic, quietly sipping tea, deep in thought. Little did I know, Nick was concocting an extraordinary plan. About a month after the landslide incident, Nick told me he wanted to visit his old haunt in Tokyo and asked me to accompany him. He said he hadn't been to Tokyo for a while and needed me to guide him. I took his words at face value and went to Tokyo with Nick. To my surprise, his old haunt turned out to be the very university hospital where I used to work. Without a word, Nick barged into the director's office. There stood Harold and Stephen, with me. It felt like a cold blizzard was raging through the room. What brings you here? How did you manage to find your way from that rural clinic without getting lost? Harold's first words to Nick were filled with sarcasm. Well, I had an excellent guide, Kyle, so I could get here even with my eyes closed. Oh, you caught the dropout who made a huge blunder here and think he's excellent? You've grown senile. I recommend you hurry back to the countryside before you embarrass yourself further. Confused by the sudden exchange of barbs, I watched as Nick took a bold step forward. I'm here today to expose all the wrongdoings you two have been involved in. What? Have you lost your mind? I wondered why you called me here along with your son-in-law, but this is nonsense. Call security. Wait, son-in-law? As I watched the exchange, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place in my mind. Nick, are you Professor Nicholas Sullivan, the former director of this hospital and Harold's father-in-law? What? I never mentioned that. No, you didn't. Recalling my previous disrespectful attitude, my face turned pale. Nick was the former director of this university hospital. What an unmotivated old doctor, I thought. But he was actually a great surgical professor. When I was younger, I had seen him a few times in the corridors, and now I could see the resemblance. The atmosphere around him had changed so much that I hadn't recognized him until now. Unlike his son-in-law Harold, Professor Sullivan, known as Nick, was famous for being a paragon of the medical profession. He was a pioneer who tried to incorporate advanced medical techniques into regional healthcare. However, his ideas were not well received at the time, and he eventually left the university. As we were causing a commotion, Harold reached for the phone to call security. Nick quickly continued. If anyone is getting thrown out by security, it's you two. I've independently investigated the reasons for Kyle's expulsion from this hospital. It turns out that the allegations against him were entirely fabricated. This time, Stephen reacted. That's not true. Kyle's misconduct is real. We have testimonies from the clinical coordinator and the pharmaceutical sales representative. Those testimonies were coerced. The coordinator and the sales rep have testified that Stephen threatened them to go along with the false story. Or else they wouldn't cooperate in future drug trials. Hearing this, Stephen gritted his teeth in frustration. And Harold, you knew about Stephen's misconduct and deliberately helped frame Kyle to cover it up. You have a cozy relationship with the pharmaceutical company, don't you? You were afraid that investigating Stephen would expose your own corruption. Nick now directed his words at Harold. Don't be ridiculous. You've always had an overactive imagination, but it's gotten worse with age. I don't have time for your delusions. Get back to the countryside immediately. No, it's you who will be stepping down. You've been taking large kickbacks from the pharmaceutical company in exchange for bulk orders of the new drug once it's approved. That's bribery. Your threats don't scare me. Trying to pin this on me? And that's not all. The financial reports for endoscopes and other equipment don't match. Where did the difference go? I heard you sent lavish gifts to the board members to recommend Stephen for the next professorship. The source of that money can be traced. Can't it? Realizing he was cornered, Harold suddenly raised his voice. Do you have proof? If these are false accusations, I'll sue you for defamation. Anticipating this response, Nick took the large bag I had been carrying for him. Really? If you want proof, here you go. Nick threw a stack of documents on the table. They included evidence of Stephen's misconduct, call records with the clinical coordinator, bank records of illegal transactions, and video footage of their secret meetings. Additionally, there were copies of contracts with the pharmaceutical company and receipts and payment slips for medical equipment purchases. Hey, Stephen, you said there wouldn't be any evidence. Harold asked, looking panicked. How? How is this possible? What? Why? Stephen stammered, drenched in cold sweat, overwhelmed by the irrefutable evidence piling up before him. All of this was gathered by staff and volunteers who respect Kyle. This shows how much they admire him. And what about you two? Your reputations are terrible. You charge high fees for private rooms and look down on patients in shared rooms. There's no compassion in your treatment of patients. A hospital is supposed to be a place where people suffering from illness are helped and healed. It's a doctor's job to listen to patients, identify problems from minor symptoms, and treat them. What you wanted to do at this hospital was just make money, wasn't it? And you managed to be the director and head of surgery with such attitudes? I'm utterly disgusted. Was this what you wanted to do so badly that you had to drive me out? Nick let out a deep sigh and continued with a slightly sad expression. Do you not realize how much this hospital's reputation has fallen? Doctors should have a spirit of compassion and a desire to save people. Focusing only on personal gain is unacceptable. Have you forgotten such a basic principle? It's disgraceful. I am the current director. I don't need a lecture from you. Harold shouted back. You still don't understand. Very well, you will step down from this hospital. Ha! You think you can just do that? Oh, I can. Just like how you removed me 10 years ago. You falsely accused me of misconduct and had the board vote on a no-confidence motion against me. So, I used the same method. I reported your misconduct to the board, and they've already approved it. What will you do now? What? Harold was stunned. Additionally, the board demands that Harold step down as director and Stephen be expelled. If you resist, they will formally report the misconduct to the police. They are also prepared to release the evidence to the media. We are recording everything in this room right now. So, what will you do? Faced with the threat of their misdeeds being exposed to the media, the two had no choice but to admit their guilt. However, Stephen, still not satisfied, glared at me with hatred. Stephen, I know you dislike me. But why did you become a doctor? To save patients? Or just to bring me down? If it's the latter, did you enjoy framing me? I actually enjoyed my time in that village. The beautiful scenery, fresh air, kind residents, and gentle patients. Everyone cooperated and lived earnestly. Even after thousands of surgeries at the university hospital, I never felt this fulfilled. As a doctor, I realized that the patients' smiles and their words of thanks are more valuable than money. I hope you find something more important than money or status one day. Hearing my words, Stephen's shoulders slumped. Ha ha. What have I been doing all this time? I'm just a clown dancing in a castle of sand. Turning to Nick, Stephen began to speak earnestly. Grandfather, I've admired you since I was a child. You were a great doctor that everyone looked up to, and I wanted to be like you. But when I became a doctor, that image changed. You were indifferent to money, pursuing the medical care you wanted without regard for hospital management. It was my father's efforts that brought the hospital back from financial trouble. He taught me that hospital management isn't just about ideals. But deep down, I still admired you. Over time, I began to resent Kyle, who shared your values. And now, look at me. I don't know what's right or wrong anymore. Muttering to himself, Stephen said nothing more and left the director's office with his head down. Nick watched Stephen's retreating figure and let out a deep sigh. That boy is lost between two conflicting ideals. He needs time to reflect and find himself. He said this with a sad smile. After that, Nick took me to a large conference room. Inside were the board members, including professors and executives. There, Nick proved my innocence, and it was decided that I would return to the university hospital. Nick replaced Harold as the hospital director, reinstated by the board. The doctors who had supported Stephen and were involved in the misconduct were also removed by the board's decision. Harold, after being dismissed, was also expelled from the university hospital. Nick then granted me the authority of acting director and said he would return to the rural clinic soon. Nick, that's not fair. I also want to return to that clinic. Oh, you like the countryside, Kyle? Then how about we start a large-scale regional healthcare project here? Really? If that's the case, I'd love to be part of it. We decided to implement a large-scale visiting medical system in rural healthcare deserts. It became a major project involving local governments. We used digital technology to operate mobile clinics in remote areas, providing regular checkups and consultations. We also converted the playground of an abandoned school into a helipad for emergency medical helicopter dispatch. Now, I can greet everyone in the village easily through video calls from the city. I stay in regular contact with Sophia from the clinic. Dr. Turner, when are you coming back next? I think I can come this weekend. Great. Irene said she'll give us a lot of delicious mountain vegetables. Let's have a tempura party. Sounds good. Now, I regularly travel back and forth between Tokyo and the rural clinic. One day, Sophia and I hiked up the mountain and saw a swarm of the elusive bluebees on the Japanese sage. Wow! Look, Dr. Turner. Blue bees. They're so cute. You're right. They're smaller and more beautiful than in the pictures. Sophia, unusually excited, looked incredibly cute. Seeing the elusive bluebee, maybe happiness will come our way too? When I said that, Sophia blushed and smiled. I'm already very happy just having you here, Dr. Turner. That makes me happy too. Yes, indeed, this is happiness. We looked at each other and laughed. At that moment, I felt truly happy. On that rainy day, the TV crew we rescued from the landslide created a documentary titled The Miracle of the Highland Clinic based on their accident. They featured me as a doctor who helped cleanse the hospital and contributed to revitalizing regional healthcare. Thanks to this, I gained a reputation as an excellent doctor, and the university hospital's management improved significantly. Revitalizing regional healthcare requires money, but fortunately, we avoided going into the red. I am working hard, juggling roles at both the university hospital in Tokyo and in regional healthcare. Interestingly, I feel less stressed now than when I was only working at the university hospital. I think it's because the countryside air suits me and the interactions with the villagers soothe my heart. People seek and aim for different things, whether it be status, fame, or wealth. But I want to interact with many people and help them. As a doctor, saving lives is a given, but being thanked by those I've helped genuinely makes me happy and motivates me. That's why I want to openly express my thoughts in gratitude. Feelings of gratitude should be expressed without hesitation, otherwise, they won't be conveyed to the other person. I aim to provide equal healthcare, without distinguishing between rural and urban areas, and I will continue to work hard toward that future. One morning, when I had an important presentation involving a $350 million deal, I helped a pregnant woman who was crouching at the station and arrived just in time for the presentation to start. At the venue, my colleague, who always sees me as a rival, had already distributed the materials and claimed the credit for himself. The next day, I was called by Mr. Waiter and was told I was fired. How dare you be late for such an important presentation? Helping a pregnant woman and being late? Stop lying. No, I'm not lying. I was just. As I tried to explain, my colleague interrupted. Oh, Mr. Waiter, this guy is always making up stories. It's a good thing I was able to cover for him this time. Or it would have been a huge loss for the company. Exactly. I hate liars the most. We don't need someone like you in our company. You're fired. Be gone. My colleague smirked next to me. Sure, it was my fault for being late. But to be fired without verifying anything. However, those who wronged me don't know. This is the countdown to their end. My name is Hugo, and I work at a venture company in a big city. Even though it's a venture company, it has already gained some recognition. And it's a great place where even someone like me with just a high school diploma can have their hard work and skills acknowledged. Because of that, the work is busy, but I live a fairly fulfilling life. Today, I came to a familiar bistro with my colleagues Kyle and Mia to celebrate the success of our team's presentation. This place, called Four Elements, is just off the main street and offers delicious seasonal dishes. The young hostess, Michelle, looks beautiful in a dress and is well liked by the customers. Of course, the food is also excellent, and I love their stews. It's like a nostalgic taste of home, and no matter how tired I am from work, just having a drink here washes away the fatigue. Oh, Hugo, it's rare to see you. Are you with your colleagues today? Yeah, we had a good day at work, so I thought we'd celebrate with some delicious food. Well, that's wonderful. Then I must show my appreciation for your patronage. Oh, thank you as always. Michelle smiled gently and handed me a hot towel. Then, Mia sighed softly as she looked at Michelle. Wow, you are really beautiful. How do you say, you have this mature charm? Guys must really like women like you. Oh my, thank you. It's flattering to be praised by someone so young. I'll give you a little extra as a thank you. Michelle said this and handed Mia a small dish. Here, this is for you. It's on the house. Wow, it looks delicious. Watching the interaction between those women, I sipped my beer with a warm feeling. Then Mia suddenly asked, Hugo, you also like women like her, right? Slightly choking, I replied, well, I don't think there's a guy who wouldn't like someone like her. Mia, visibly annoyed, poured more beer into my glass. See, I'm just a young kid with nothing but youth going for me. Hey, Are you already drunk before you even started drinking? Quiet, I'm gonna drink a lot. Mia kept clinging to me, and it didn't sit well with Kyle. Kyle, who graduated from a famous university, was friendly when we joined the company. But his attitude changed as soon as he learned I only had a high school diploma. He would dump all the tedious work like data collection and analysis on me and take all the credit for himself. Hey, Hugo. I need this report by tomorrow. What? By tomorrow? I still haven't finished what you asked for yesterday. Come on, a high school graduate like you has the guts to handle it. Your only asset is your stamina, right? He said this in a jokingly sarcastic manner and shoved the work onto me. Mia, who didn't like Kyle's way of doing things, often grumbled about it. Seriously, he never does any of the tedious tasks and dumps everything on Hugo. Does he think he's better just because he's a university graduate? He's probably just jealous because everyone at work likes Hugo. Mia, come on. I'll manage somehow. Geez, Hugo, you're too nice. But don't overdo it, or you'll collapse. Yeah, thanks. That day, I stayed late into the night to finish all the work Kyle had assigned to me. I knew Kyle looked down on me because I was only a high school graduate, but I didn't feel any inferiority about my educational background. That's because I chose not to go to college. My mother ran a community kitchen from our home, providing free meals to children who couldn't afford proper food. She was what you would call a meddlesome, big-hearted mother. My father would help with the shopping after work, and I assisted with various tasks from a young age. Community kitchens attracted kids with all sorts of circumstances. Among them, there was a sibling pair named Mimi and John who came frequently. Their household was a single-mother family, and their mother worked multiple part-time jobs. For dinner, the two of them would share a single PJ sandwich. Whenever I saw Mimi and John, they always looked so skinny. I remember my mother bringing them to our kitchen one day, seeing how thin they always were. Kids need to eat a lot, play hard, and sleep well. That's their job, she said, laughing heartily as she served them mashed potatoes and pork stew. It seemed like it had been a long time since they had a warm meal, and they ate eagerly, saying how delicious it was. From that day on, they came to our kitchen daily, and we became like siblings. I wonder what Mimi and John are doing now. I hope they're doing well. I often think about them like they are my real siblings. The community kitchen received some donations from NPOs, but most of the costs were covered by the owners. We got most of our ingredients directly from the garden my grandparents maintained as a hobby. As an only child, I enjoyed having so many small companions around. Watching young siblings eat my mother's meals with big smiles made me happy. During such a life, when I was in high school, my father passed away due to illness. My mother intended to close the community kitchen, but I didn't want her to stop, so I decided not to go to college and started working instead. Eventually, a few years later, my mother followed my father, and we had to close the kitchen. But I don't regret my choice. I loved seeing my mother smile while running the kitchen. Even now, I occasionally recall my mother cooking happily and the children enjoying her meals. I heard that Mimi and John were taken in by some distant relatives. Sometimes, I wonder how they are doing now and find myself feeling sentimental. Kyle mocks me for my educational background, but I believe having the skills to do the job well is more important than having a degree. So no matter how much he belittles me, I decided not to let it bother me and to keep working hard. Having finished the data analysis Kyle had pushed onto me, I started preparing materials for tomorrow's project meeting. In that meeting, we were to decide where to focus our efforts for a new product line our company would handle. In the end, the meeting concluded with a decision to handle high-revenue products, considering cost-effectiveness. After the meeting, I was stopped by our department head manager, Travis. Hugo, I'd like you to handle the presentation for the new product. It involves acquiring a new client, so stay focused. If successful, this could be a $350 million deal. Thank you. But $350 million. That's a lot of responsibility. Feeling the weight of the responsibility, I was reflecting on it when Kyle, who had also been in the meeting, spoke up to Travis. Travis, why are you giving such a big task to someone like Hugo with no degree? Shouldn't I be the one handling it? Travis frowned slightly at Kyle's self-promotion while subtly insulting me. No, this project involves many of the junior staff. We need someone like Hugo, who is trusted by them, to lead. Kyle, you should assist him. Got it. Understood. Clearly displeased, Kyle didn't press Travis any further, and we began preparing for the new presentation. Hugo, let's make sure this is a success. Yeah, let's do our best. As my teammates and I started preparing, even Kyle, who initially wasn't very cooperative, began helping with the material preparation. Hey, Hugo, should this data go on page 6? Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. Both Mia and I were initially suspicious of Kyle's sudden change, as he started helping without any snide remarks. Eventually, we let our guard down, thinking he might have finally turned over a new leaf. However, at that moment, I had no idea this would be a major pitfall. The presentation materials that my team and I stayed up late to complete turned out excellently. I was eagerly awaiting the day, confident that we would succeed. On the morning of the presentation, as I had to visit the client's company, I woke up earlier than usual and took extra care not to be late. But trouble often strikes at the worst times. On my way to the station, I saw a heavily pregnant woman crouching and holding her stomach. She was in visible pain, her forehead covered in sweat. Since it was rush hour, passers-by merely glanced at her without stopping. I couldn't just walk by, so I ran over and spoke to her. Are you okay? Noticing my voice, the woman slowly lifted her head and replied in a tearful voice. It hurts, my belly. Is it labor pains? Yes, I think so. Nodding painfully, she confirmed it was labor. She mentioned there was a nearby clinic she usually visited. Though her due date was still ahead, labor had suddenly started. I quickly hailed a taxi and took her to the hospital. Once we arrived, a family member of hers showed up shortly after, so I wished her well and hurried to the presentation venue. I arrived just in time and apologized to my team. Looking around the room, I saw that Kyle had already distributed the materials. Thanks, Kyle, you really saved me. Don't mention it, we're a team. Now get ready to start. Yeah, thanks. I hastily finished preparing and managed to start the presentation just in time. However, as I began speaking, a quiet murmur spread through the room. Soon, one of the clients spoke up irritably. Hey, the materials don't match the projector presentation. What's going on? The data in the handouts is completely different from the estimates. Did you even check this? Presenting such sloppy data shows a lack of respect for our company. Hearing these criticisms, I checked my materials in confusion, only to find that they were completely different from what I had prepared. What? What's going on? Beside me, Kyle let out a small, quiet laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the error in the materials. Please take a look at these updated handouts. Kyle said, distributing the correct materials I had prepared. Then, taking the microphone, he added, from here, I'll take responsibility for the explanation, looking at me with a mocking smile. Since it was a $350 million deal, I had to step down quietly to not disrupt the atmosphere, though I was filled with frustration. Kyle's explanation was based entirely on the script I had prepared. I've been tricked, I thought, clenching my fist in anger. Kyle had likely planned this from the start, aiming to make me look incompetent and himself more capable to the higher-ups. Though the presentation ended smoothly, Kyle's actions had left my reputation in tatters. I was now seen as the guy who was late and used the wrong materials. That was my new reputation. The next day, Mr. Waiter came to my department and reprimanded me harshly. What were you thinking? Not only arriving just in time for the presentation, and then, used the wrong materials. You've disgraced our company. Unbelievable. I am truly sorry. I sincerely apologized, though it sounded like an excuse. Explained that I had been delayed helping a pregnant woman and that the materials had been switched. But Kyle interrupted me. Mr. Waiter, everything Hugo is saying is completely false. This guy is all talk and always manages to deceive everyone. Even during the last successful presentation, Travis gave Hugo all the credit, but I did all the data analysis. As for the materials this time, when I checked with him, he assured me they were correct. But from my experience, I felt something was off. So I prepared backup materials just in case. Thankfully, they came in handy. Everything Kyle said was a lie. But in this situation, Mr. Waiter wouldn't believe anything I said. I swallowed my frustration. Is that so? Your name is Kyle, right? I heard you graduated with honors from a prestigious university. Indeed, education doesn't lie. Well done. If this deal had fallen through, our company would have suffered greatly. Not at all. I just did what needed to be done. Such humility is commendable. Still, I had heard from Travis that Hugo was a promising talent. This is disappointing. And I hate liars. We don't need someone who is late to important meetings and lies in our company. Hugo, you're fired. What? My mind went blank at the sudden notice of termination. Mia, who had been listening behind me, started to speak up to Mr. Waiter. Mr. Waiter, Hugo is not at fault at all. Mia, it's okay. But Mr. Waiter glared at Mia behind me. Ah, a loyal junior to Hugo, I see. Questioning my decision, looks like he taught you well not to follow company rules. It seems high school graduates aren't properly taught social rules. Worried that saying more would worsen her situation, I quickly opened my mouth to protect her. Mr. Waiter, as you said, this mistake is entirely my responsibility. She doesn't know anything about it. I am deeply sorry. Very well. If you understand, submit your resignation and leave immediately. Yes, I understand. After Mr. Waiter left the room, Kyle turned to me with a sneer. See? Without a degree, you can't do anything right. Checking the materials beforehand is basic. Hey, you. And stop trusting people so easily. Also, stop trying to please everyone. It will only hurt you. Mia, you really picked the wrong senior. If you'd been under me from the start, I'd have taken good care of you. No, thank you. I don't need someone who steals credit through dirty tricks. Fine, but don't come crying later. I realized this was Kyle's true nature. I knew he looked down on me because of my high school diploma, but I didn't expect him to go to such lengths to ruin me. Despite doing everything he asked without complaint, why did he resent me so much? The more I thought about it, the more empty I felt. My juniors, including Mia, were dissatisfied with Kyle's actions and Mr. Waiter's decision, and they opposed my dismissal. But in our company, the president's orders are absolute. Unless there's a compelling reason, such decisions cannot be overturned. I calmed everyone down and decided to use my accumulated vacation time starting the next day. Though I had been with the company for a long time, once my vacation ended, it would be goodbye. That night, I stopped by our usual bistro, for Elements. Michelle greeted me with her usual gentle smile, and I couldn't help but feel emotional. Seeing my face, she seemed to sense something was wrong. Here, this one's on me. Drink up and forget about your troubles, she said. Michelle. I got fired from my job. Oh dear. But knowing you, there must have been a reason, right? Yeah, sort of. Do you remember Kyle, the colleague who came here with me last time? Of course, I remember. He set me up. I told her about meeting the pregnant woman on my way to the presentation, taking her to the hospital, almost being late, and falling into Kyle's trap. So that's what happened. But Hugo, you did a wonderful thing by helping that pregnant woman and her baby. That's incredible. Any company that fires someone for doing the right thing has a bleak future. Maybe it's a good thing you left early. Do you think so? Absolutely. You'll find a new job soon, Hugo. Thanks, Michelle. But since I'll be unemployed for a while, I might not be able to come here. Don't say such sad things. You can pay me back when you get your next job. It's fine to come even for free. Michelle, that's too generous. But it makes me happy to hear you say that. Thank you. Don't worry. Something good is definitely coming your way. My hunches are usually right. Michelle's bright smile seemed dazzling. About 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. I couldn't think of anyone who would visit me except for delivery people, so I headed to the door, only to find Michelle standing there. Michelle? How did you find my place? Hugo, long time no see. How have you been? There's someone who really wanted to meet you, so I asked Mia for your address and brought her here. Someone wanted to meet me? Yes. This is Samantha Sawyer. She's the woman you helped 2 weeks ago. Oh. How are you doing now? Thanks to you, I'm doing well. The baby was born healthy, and it's all thanks to you. I can't thank you enough. Samantha bowed deeply to express her gratitude. I'm glad to hear that. So the baby was born safely. As I responded, her expression suddenly darkened. But I heard you got fired for helping me. What a terrible company. I can't believe the nerve of your boss. It's all in the past now, so you don't need to worry about it. No, I can't just ignore it. The person who saved me and my baby's lives is facing such an injustice. I can't just stand by. Could you tell me more about what happened? Responding to her earnest request, I recounted the events in detail. Come to think of it, I hadn't talked this much to anyone in a while. I see. But if that's the case, I think I can help. Yes, I have some interesting information too. If you want to get back at them, I have a good idea. Really? What do you mean? We discussed various plans for the future. Hugo, have you been eating properly? Michelle handed me a food tray filled with beef stew and other prepared foods from the bistro. Humans need proper meals to stay strong. You have to eat well to prepare for what's next. Michelle, thank you. Don't mention it. By the way, Hugo, did you give Samantha one of our bistro's business cards at the hospital? Yeah. So that's why you came here with her. Exactly. You're quite absent-minded, aren't you? Sorry. I laughed it off, but in truth, I was incredibly embarrassed. Being a huge fan of Bistro 4 Elements and Michelle, I had always carried the bistro's business card with me as a sort of good luck charm. In my rush to get to the presentation, when Samantha asked for my contact info, I accidentally handed her the bistro's card. After being fired, I couldn't find the card anywhere, realizing I had given it to Samantha by mistake. But in the end, it worked out, as I gained strong allies in Samantha and Michelle. All's well that ends well. Samantha, do you still have that business card? Yes, I do. Here it is. I've kept it safe. Could we trade it for this one? Why? Asked Michelle, curious. Feeling awkward, I answered honestly. I love Michelle's bistro. No matter how tired I am, stepping into the restaurant instantly refreshes me. So the business card is like my lucky charm. My, that's so sweet. Michelle blushed with a pleased expression. Until you find a new job and proudly come back to the bistro, I'll deliver our food to you, she offered. What? Hugo, you can't refuse a lady's offer. Samantha added with a knowing smile. Blushing, I thanked Michelle. On the last day of my leave, I headed to the office. Then Travis came rushing to get me. Hugo, and Kyle. Everyone involved in the presentation the other day, come to the president's office immediately. What? Kyle looked confused about why he was being called, but I had a sense of what might happen next. Well, it'll be nice to see you get a scolding from Mr. Waiter one last time, Kyle said with a smug grin. While I mentally stuck my tongue out at him. When we arrived at the president's office, we found Mr. Waiter with a pale face and the client company's president. Hugo, please forget about your resignation. Mr. Waiter said as soon as he saw me. What? Mr. Waiter, what's going on? Today was supposed to be my last day at this company. It's about the $350 million deal we signed the other day. The client president insists that you handle it. If you don't, they'll cancel the deal. Listening to Mr. Waiter's desperate explanation, Kyle quickly objected. Mr. Waiter, what are you saying? You said this liar was unnecessary for the company. And you told me I would be in charge of this deal. Shut up. This is not the time for that. Then, the client president, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Why did you call Hugo a liar? Mr. Sawyer, it's because he lied about being late to the presentation because he helped a pregnant woman. Oh? Hugo, was your reason for being late a lie? No, it was true. I helped a woman who had gone into labor and took her to her hospital, which made me late to the presentation. I see. And who was this woman you helped? Her name was Samantha Sawyer, a woman in her 20s. She recently visited my home to thank me and said her baby was born safely. Interesting. My own grandchild was just born, and my daughter was also helped by a kind man at the station. His name was Hugo. If I remember correctly. What? The client president laughed joyfully, like a child who had pulled off a prank. So, Mr. Sawyer, you're saying Hugo helped your daughter? Yes, indeed. How could I stand by when the man who saved my daughter and grandchild is being called a liar and fired? Kyle's face contorted with anger as he spoke. But putting him in charge just because of that is completely personal. He presented incorrect materials and is incompetent. Helping someone and workability are separate issues. Oh? You say he's incompetent? Yes, exactly. He's a high school graduate who can't do his job properly. Kyle shouted. At that moment, Mia, who had come with us to the president's office, spoke up. Mr. Waiter, I have a report about the materials used in the presentation. Mia, what is it? Yes. The incorrect data in the presentation was created by Kyle. I verified the properties and logs of the printed materials. It was Hugo who created the correct materials that Kyle later distributed. What? So, Kyle was the one lying from the start? Yes, that's correct. Mr. Sawyer added to Kyle, who had turned pale. And I hear you even paid some young people to cause a scene during the presentation? What? Mr. Sawyer, what are you talking about? Kyle tried to deny it, but Mr. Sawyer continued with amusement. I found it odd that some young people who usually wouldn't make a fuss were creating such a ruckus over incorrect materials. After hearing about Hugo from my daughter, I questioned them. They confessed they were paid by you to swap Hugo's materials and create a commotion. Kyle, what have you done? So, all this time, it was Hugo doing the work, and you were taking the credit? Mr. Waiter exclaimed. That's a lie. I'm better at this job than a high school graduate like him. Everyone always praises Hugo. But I'm the one who truly cares about this company. Kyle shouted. That's the biggest lie of all. Suddenly, the door to the president's office swung open, and in walked Samantha and, surprisingly, Michelle in a suit. What? Samantha. And Michelle? I stammered. Samantha, looking every bit the professional, gave me a quick wink. Before glaring at Kyle. Nice to meet you. I'm Samantha Sawyer, Vice President of Sawyer Trading, and the woman Hugo helped. I've come to report Kyle's fraudulent activities. Fraudulent activities? Mr. Waiter couldn't hide his surprise at this revelation. In this recent deal, our representative, Harrison, was approached by Kyle with a scheme for inflated billing. They planned to split the profits evenly, already having prepared a falsified invoice for $100,000, with $50,000 each. Harrison consulted me at the last minute, wondering what to do. So Kyle's claim of being loyal to your company is a complete lie. That's a lie. I've never heard of anyone named Harrison. Kyle desperately denied. Now it was Michelle's turn, in her suit, to speak. Oh, come on, Kyle. You and Harrison come to my bistro quite often. Just last night, you were both there. I even have a video of you two on my phone. She showed the video on her smartphone, which clearly captured Kyle and Harrison discussing their plan. All you have to do is follow what I said, and you'll make a fortune. One deal, $100,000. Easy money, right? Kyle said, with his arm around Harrison's shoulder. This video was undeniable evidence. I filmed this because the conversation was so suspicious. Kyle always acted rudely and bothered other customers. Despite my protests, he wouldn't stop. I recorded it for moments like this, in case of any trouble. Michelle explained with a smile but cold eyes. Damn you. You all conspired against me. How could you prefer this high school graduate over me? I'm an elite graduate from a prestigious university. I'm far superior to him. Kyle shouted, losing his composure. Shut up. Everything is your fault. You're fired, Kyle. Mr. Waiter yelled, his face red with anger. Hearing the commotion, security arrived and restrained Kyle, who was still shouting. He was placed on administrative leave immediately. So, Hugo, what do you want to do? Do you still want to work here? Mr. Sawyer asked. I shook my head decisively. No, I don't plan to return to this company. What? Hugo, please come back. Mr. Waiter pleaded. No, Mr. Waiter. At first, I thought this company was great because it gave someone like me a chance. But this incident showed me otherwise. I want to work somewhere I can truly utilize my skills. That's right. Hugo deserves that. He should thrive in a new environment. So, Dad, as the vice president, I want to hire him for our company. Is that okay? Samantha asked. Suddenly Samantha wants to hire me. This was a golden opportunity for me. Having recently learned about their company from Samantha, I found it intriguing. Of course. I was planning to hire him personally. Mr. Sawyer replied. Thank you, Dad. So, Hugo, let's work together from now on. Yes. Thank you very much. Thus, I joined Sawyer Trading, which has branches all over the world. Now, I'm in charge of the import division, bringing in various goods from overseas. I have a close relationship with Samantha's family, and I've become good friends with her son, Hayden. After Kyle was fired, the $350 million deal was cancelled. However, I now import the cosmetics that were supposed to be purchased from my previous company at a much lower price. Resulting in substantial profits for Sawyer Trading, Samantha is in an excellent mood. And as for me, Michelle has become more than just a friend. In fact, she's practically moved in with me. Today, I'm enjoying her delicious cooking at 4 Elements, along with some fine sake. This is my moment of bliss. Recently, another regular has joined us at the bistro. It's Mia, my former colleague, now drinking sake in front of me. I finally transferred to Sawyer Trading to get closer to Hugo, but I was too late. So frustrating. She had followed me to Sawyer Trading and had become a respected buyer known for her female perspective on purchases. But I understand that Michelle is unbeatable. One day, I'll become as wonderful as her and find someone even better than Hugo. Oh, Mia, you're already wonderful. Michelle reassured her. Thank you. Another round of your recommended sake, please. Hey, take it easy, I said, trying to calm her down. Michelle laughed and placed a dish of stewed food in front of me. As I ate, I praised her cooking again. Michelle, your cooking always hits the spot. It's like a nostalgic taste of home. Really? I'm glad you like my cooking. But it's no surprise you do, Hugo. Really? Why's that? Haven't you figured it out yet? Hugh. Wait, that name. Could it be Nini? Yes, it's me, Nini, also known as Michelle. No way. You've changed so much, I didn't recognize you at all. She was the same Mimi who used to come to our community kitchen for dinner every night. Then what about your brother, John? Oh come on, Hugh, you see him all the time. He's our head chef now. What? That John is the muscular chef with the buzz cut? Yes, that's him. You must be shocked, right? He used to be so skinny, and now he's got muscles like a gorilla. But we owe everything to your mother. The taste of her food is what we strive to replicate. We're truly grateful. That makes sense. No wonder your cooking tastes so familiar. To us, food is linked to happiness. When you're hungry, you feel so sad and can't do anything. But at the community kitchen, after a full meal, we felt so happy and slept well at night. John felt the same way. Your mom gave us happiness. After we were taken in by our grandparents, we had proper meals, but we always remembered the food from the community kitchen. I worked hard, hoping to one day cook meals with that same gentle taste. And now, you're really doing it. Your cooking is truly delicious. I'm so glad to hear that. My next goal is to save enough money to start my own community kitchen. That's great. I'm sure you'll achieve that dream. Community kitchens, once reliant on donations, now see participation from major convenience store chains. Many kids would find happiness in just receiving food that would otherwise be discarded, like lunchboxes and snacks. However, a warm, home-cooked meal can also warm a person's heart. Michelle wants to run a community kitchen that offers such warmth. Knowing how challenging it is, I want to help her realize this dream as much as I can. To that end, I plan to find a way to import affordable ingredients from overseas someday. This connection brought by warm meals is a precious one. It's a bond that my mother created with her kindness and smile. I want to cherish this important connection forever. Emily. Today, I visited a hot spring inn for a company retreat. Leaving the lively party with my colleagues, I was walking towards the hot spring, humming to myself, when I saw someone collapsed in front of the changing room. Rushing over, I found it was my supervisor, Emily, the chief. Emily. Are you okay? I called out, but she barely responded. Her body, which I instinctively lifted, and her face were quite red. It seemed she had fainted from the heat. I was startled by the sound escaping her lips. In my rush to help her, I hadn't noticed that her yukata had come loose, revealing a bit too much of her chest and thighs. Just then, I heard several male voices coming from the men's bath. I couldn't leave her in such a state here. Thinking that, I carried her to my nearby room. Did you see me? You're the worst. When she woke up, she misunderstood and berated me harshly, but this incident led me to discover Emily's true nature. My name is John. I work in sales for a company primarily dealing with food wholesale. I've always loved talking to and observing people, and my sociable nature has been a great asset in my sales job, keeping me at the top of the charts for the past year. Selling products is my job, but I enjoy the environment where I can visit various companies and stores and talk to different people. Even after 3 years, I still find it as enjoyable as when I was a rookie. Though busy and sometimes facing setbacks, I have a reliable boss and supportive colleagues, making my work very fulfilling. I might be an unusual type, but I look forward to going to work every day. Of course, the work itself is enjoyable, but there's another big reason. That reason is my supervisor, Emily. She exudes a cool, capable aura, and despite being in her 20s, she has already risen to a chief position thanks to her impressive work achievements. She is strict with both herself and others and has a stern attitude towards work, which makes some colleagues uneasy around her. Her perfectionism earns both admiration and criticism, and she never breaks her cool facade at work. However, when I was new, I saw Emily's attitude towards work and her sincere dealings with clients, and I felt a strong admiration, thinking, I want to be like Emily. Since then, I've always been watching her. She probably hasn't noticed. While observing her every day, I've also noticed some unexpected sides of her. She has a cute bear charm on a pen in her desk's pen holder, and one of the sticky notes on her computer says today's menu as a shopping list. These adorable aspects of her make me smile to myself. Of course, I can't let Emily see me like this. Initially, it was pure admiration, but over time, it has gradually changed. And now I am keenly aware of her as a woman. She probably hasn't noticed my feelings. And I'm sure she wouldn't be interested in someone with a baby face and a constantly smiling expression like mine. But that's okay. Even if our relationship is just that of a supervisor and subordinate in a company, being with her is enough for me. Lately, however, there's been a troubling development. 6 months ago, Aaron, the only son of President Johnson, was transferred to our sales department and took up the position of section manager. Since then, the once pleasant work environment has drastically changed. On the one hand, he forced younger employees to attend drinking parties and go on cabaret tours, and on the other, if he found someone he didn't like, especially those who criticized him, he would boldly declare, I'll demote anyone who can't do their job. He also showed many outrageous behaviors, such as finding female employees he liked and saying, I'll make her my secretary, to keep them close to him. His father, President Johnson, was a masterful businessman who had significantly grown the company and was known for his friendly demeanor. However, when it came to his own son, he seemed to be lenient, failing to reprimand him strongly. Taking advantage of his father's leniency, Aaron's behavior escalated, making everyone in the department constantly fearful of his mood. I, like everyone else, had my grievances with Aaron but couldn't voice them and had to keep my head down and work in silence. Emily, being directly under Aaron's supervision, was frequently called upon and given tasks. At first, it wasn't too bad, but over time, Emily's expressions grew darker after each encounter with Aaron, and I grew increasingly worried. Knowing Aaron, he might have been verbally abusing Emily with baseless accusations. Though I wanted to do something, my cowardice kept me from acting, and time just passed by. One day, I saw a familiar figure in the hallway. It was Emily. She seemed to have just returned from outside, and as I was about to greet her, she suddenly looked like she was about to collapse. "Watch out!" I rushed over and caught her. Though Emily was always slender, her body felt alarmingly light when I held her. "Emily, are you okay?" When I asked, she looked up at me with a pale face. Her complexion was so bad that I became even more worried and was about to ask more, but as soon as she saw my face, she screamed, "Don't touch me!" and pushed me away with surprising strength, causing me to stumble backward. Emily's expression changed to one of shock when she saw me standing there in a daze. She quickly said, "I'm sorry," and ran away from the scene. Watching her retreating figure, I recalled what had just happened. Sure, it was inappropriate to touch a woman's body so abruptly, even in an emergency. But her reaction seemed to stem from more than just that. Even though it was unexpected, it was a strong enough force to make a man like me stagger. A scream and expression mixed with fear. Even I could see it was a strong rejection. I felt deeply hurt, thinking, Emily must hate me now, and stared at the empty hallway, feeling devastated. From then on, I made sure not to approach Emily carelessly. I didn't want to scare her again, and if she rejected me again, I feared I wouldn't be able to recover. As time passed, under the shadow of Aaron's tyranny and my growing despondency, one by one, people started quitting, leaving behind only yes-men around Aaron. By that time, there was no one left in the department who would confront Aaron directly, and everyone was saying, "I just want to quit." Emily's expressions grew darker each day. Around that time, I noticed her desk had become unusually tidy. Her cute pens and sticky notes were gone, and I thought she might be considering quitting as well. Seeing her reminded me of all those who had left, and I felt a deep sadness as I looked around the increasingly empty department. A month later, President Johnson himself organized a company retreat to boost morale. Following Aaron's suggestion, it turned into a hot spring trip with the absurd rule that all unmarried female employees had to attend. Officially, it was to be considerate of married employees' family responsibilities. But everyone knew it was just an excuse for Aaron's ulterior motives. In our department, there were only 2 unmarried women, Emily and another woman named Catherine, who was currently on family leave. So it was effectively only Emily who was required to attend. I couldn't forget Aaron's leering face and Emily's dark expression when the trip was announced. During the trip, everyone had to cater to Aaron's whims, making us question the purpose of the retreat. After a day of exhausting sightseeing, we moved on to the evening banquet. While Aaron and his cronies were getting rowdy, a few of us who disapproved of him hatched a plan. Our goal was to get Aaron drunk and ensure some peaceful time until morning. We exchanged glances and took our positions. As the banquet began, the already cheerful Aaron started bothering Emily. Emily calmly deflected his advances, but he persisted. I decided to intervene by offering him a drink. "Aaron, this is a local specialty sake. Here, have some." Plastering my sales smile on my face, I poured the locally famous sake into Aaron's cup, which the hostess had said was once presented to the local lord. The fragrant aroma caught Aaron's attention, and he took a sip. "This is good. For once, you brought something decent." "Thank you." I smiled politely while refilling Aaron's cup with sake. Then another colleague chimed in, "This is a great appetizer to go with the sake." We continued to offer Aaron drinks, and as he got drunker, he started boasting, "I'm the next president," and getting rowdier with his sycophants. We had been forced to drink with Aaron for the past 6 months and knew he couldn't handle alcohol well and would soon fall asleep. Just as planned, after a while, Aaron started snoring loudly on the tatami mat in the banquet hall. My colleagues and I quietly smirked, thinking, we did it. Even his sycophants looked relieved. It seemed that even the yes-men Aaron had gathered didn't like him. Watching his blissfully unaware sleeping face, I felt a twinge of pity, but given his usual behavior, he didn't deserve any sympathy. We decided to leave him be and enjoy the banquet. I was having a great time with my colleagues for the first time in a while, but when I looked around, I noticed Emily was missing. Maybe she's resting in her room, now that she's free from Aaron. I was hoping that Emily could find some peace of mind during this trip, even if only for a little while. Her expression had been so downcast when this company retreat was announced. Remembering that moment, I felt my heart grow heavy like lead. To change my mood, I told my drinking colleagues, "I'm going to the bath," and left the banquet. Thanks to the troublesome presents being passed out drunk, everyone was enjoying themselves and didn't even notice when I left. They continued to drink merrily. The hostess had mentioned upon our arrival that this inn has an open-air bath called a hidden hot spring. Since I'm not a heavy drinker and had barely touched any alcohol at the party, I decided to fully enjoy the hot spring. With a light step, I headed towards the changing room. It was at that moment I saw someone collapsed in front of the dressing room. "Are you okay?" I hurried over and lifted the person up. It was only then that I realized the person was Emily. She looked different without her glasses and in her yukata, which is why I didn't recognize her immediately. Her skin and face were flushed, and she felt hot to the touch. "Emily." She responded faintly, which reassured me. She must have gotten overheated. Emily, leaning weakly against me, looked so vulnerable that inappropriate thoughts crept into my mind. I shook my head to clear those thoughts. "Get a grip, idiot. What are you thinking about a woman who's unwell?" Emily shifted and nestled her face into my chest. The sweet scent of her hair made my heart race, and I started feeling dizzy. At that moment, I heard voices from the men's bath, likely from a group of male guests. "A cold sake after a bath is the best." "Yeah. But you're always drinking, aren't you, Jack?" That voice snapped me back to reality, and I panicked when I saw Emily's appearance. Whether it was from falling over or putting it on absent-mindedly, her yukata had come loose, revealing her chest and thighs to a dangerously precarious level. Not wanting anyone else to see her like this, I apologized. "I'm sorry, Emily," and carefully adjusted her yukata, avoiding any improper contact. I picked up her glasses from the floor and carried her on my back to my room. I laid her on the futon and placed a cool towel on her face and legs, using a cold water bottle from the fridge to help her recover. After about 30 minutes, the redness in Emily's face subsided, and her expression softened. Relieved, I watched as Emily slowly opened her eyes. Still groggy, she blinked at the ceiling. "Emily, how are you feeling?" I asked cautiously, and she looked at me. She stared at my face for a few seconds before her expression turned to one of shock. "Ah," she screamed. "Wait, Emily, calm down." I called out to her, but Emily, in a panic, bombarded me with questions. I was supposed to be in the bath. Why am I in this room? Did you bring me here? Did you see me naked? No. I didn't see. You did see, didn't you? You're the worst. I misjudged you, John. Even though I had said words of denial, I was somehow misunderstood. Even if it was a misunderstanding, being called the worst by the person I care about was emotionally tough. Desperate to clear up the misunderstanding, I tried to explain, but Emily ignored me and picked up a pillow, ready to throw it. "No, it's not like that. Please listen to me." I inadvertently raised my voice, wanting her to listen. Emily, startled, stopped. Seizing the opportunity, I hurriedly explained and justified myself. "Please, just let me say this. I didn't do anything inappropriate to you. Your yukata was disheveled, so I fixed it. But I was very careful not to touch your skin. If that still made you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. I apologize." After apologizing, I explained everything that had happened since I found her outside the changing room. As Emily listened to my explanation, she looked at the nearby water bottles and wet towels, then lowered her head. "You helped me, John," and I jumped to conclusions and panicked. "I'm sorry. No, it's my fault for not thinking it through. It's only natural that you'd think the worst, given the situation. I should have been more considerate." I bowed my head as well. No, it's my fault. It's embarrassing to get heat stroke at my age. Emily said this with an embarrassed smile. Perhaps it was because of her yukata and the absence of her glasses, but her atmosphere and smile were different from what I was used to at work. And it made my heart skip a beat. So, Emily, are you feeling better now? Yes, thanks to you, John. Thank you. I'm glad. When I saw you collapsed, I thought my heart would stop. You were that worried about me. Well, right, you need to stay hydrated. I'll get you something to drink. Feeling that my emotions were slipping into my words due to the nervousness and excitement of being alone with Emily, I decided to step away under the pretext of getting a drink to calm myself. When I returned with a bottle of water and handed it to Emily, she smiled and said, "Thank you." As I admired her smile, I noticed her cheeks were still slightly red. Emily? Are you still feeling hot? Why? Well, your ears and cheeks are still a bit red. I'll open the window a bit. Oh, that's... Her words were drowned out by the sound of the window opening, letting in a cool breeze. Let me know if it gets too cold. It's not good to chill your body too much. Thank you. I spoke to her and then sat at a respectful distance. Emily gazed at me intently. Emily? Is something wrong? No, nothing. John, really, thank you. Her repeated gratitude made me realize how considerate she was. We made small talk, but eventually, the conversation died down. And silence filled the room. Unable to think of anything to say and noticing Emily still looked a bit unwell, I saw her staring at the bottle in her hand. Just as I wondered what to do, there was a knock on the door, followed by a cheerful voice. Hey, John. Are you back from the bath? The banquet's over, but we're not done drinking. Come join us in my room. It seemed my colleagues had come to get me. It was a welcome distraction from the awkwardness. I'm going to join them. Please, take your time and go back to your room whenever you feel up to it. You don't need to move anything, just take it easy. Wait. Watch out. As Emily tried to stand and stop me, she felt dizzy and started to fall forward. I caught her just in time. Emily, who had collapsed into my chest, raised her head and our eyes met. The unexpected closeness made my heart race, but seeing her eyes glisten with tears made me hold my breath. Please, don't leave. She whispered weakly, looking down. Seeing her shoulders tremble slightly, I couldn't help but tighten my grip around her. John? I heard a noise, are you okay? A concerned voice called from the other side of the door. I'm fine. Just tripped and almost fell. I think I'm more tired than I thought, so I'm going to rest now. While supporting Emily, I responded to my colleagues, declining their invitation. All right, take it easy. We did have a long day. Rest up. See you tomorrow. I heard the sound of footsteps as they walked away. Once the footsteps were completely out of earshot, I called out to Emily. Are you okay? Let's sit down for now. Watch your step. Supporting her unsteady frame, I gently guided her to a soft cushion. Her face looked a bit pale. I'm sorry for holding you back, John. Seeing her so different from her usual cool demeanor, I hesitated before speaking. Did something happen? Does it have to do with why you've looked so down recently? Emily's head snapped up at my words. Her expression shifted from one of surprise to one that looked like she was about to cry. John, you noticed. I've been followed by someone. What? You mean? I think I'm being stalked. Stalked? Emily began to speak slowly. About half a year ago, I started feeling like someone was following me. And things like stationery from my desk would go missing. They were gifts from my sister that I cherished, but I couldn't find them anywhere. For half a year. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but the feeling kept growing. But I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I was stunned by Emily's words. I had never known anyone personally affected by stalking, but I'd seen it on the news and TV shows. People being followed at night, their homes being broken into, sometimes even losing their lives. Hearing about it from someone close made my heart ache, thinking of her enduring such fear alone for so long. Have you talked to the police? I don't have any solid evidence, so I haven't gone yet. I might just be imagining things. I'm sorry. I didn't notice anything. John. You've always been there for me since I was a newbie, but I didn't realize you were suffering. I clenched my fists in frustration. The frustration of not noticing the changes despite being so close, and the anger towards the person tormenting Emily, mixed and surged through me. It's not your fault, John. And working hard with you and everyone helped me forget the bad things. She said, smiling. Her kindness, even while she was suffering the most, made my chest tighten with sorrow instead of the usual joy. I've always loved hot springs. So I was a bit excited about this trip. I thought I could forget about the stalker for a while. She laughed softly, perhaps at a memory. When I go to hot springs with my family, I have to take care of my little sister, so I never get to relax. You have a sister? Yes. I haven't mentioned it before, have I? I also have brothers, but there's quite an age gap. They're quite a handful for the whole family. Adorable, though. Her smile was warm and kind, reflecting her love for her family. That's why I ended up taking a long bath. It's funny that I stayed in until I almost passed out. But I'm sorry for causing you trouble, John. Not at all. It wasn't any trouble. I'm actually happy that she got a bit overheated, because it means I get to see her smile and talk with her like this. Of course, I'm worried about the stalking, but knowing why Emily's been so down recently makes me feel relieved. John, thank you so much for today. Anne, I'm sorry for the way I reacted before. You were just trying to help. But I overreacted because I was so scared. Her words reminded me of a few months ago. I had thought she hated me, which made me feel down, but given her situation, it made sense that she would be afraid of being touched by a man. Now, I understood why she had reacted so strongly. No, it's okay. I'm just glad you weren't hurt, both then and now. I smiled, hoping to reassure her. Emily looked at me and softly said, You're not like the stalker, John. You're so kind. Her eyes wavered slightly. Seeing that, I had the urge to hold her close. But I suppressed it. I must not scare Emily any further, as she already harbors a fear of men. As I tried to calm myself, I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was past 10 p.m. I'm sorry. It's already quite late. You should get some rest. I'll walk you back to your room. Saying that, I tried to stand up. But Emily didn't move. Emily. I know it's a strange request, but can I stay here tonight? What? Her unexpected request left me frozen halfway through standing up. Looking up at me, she asked again. Is it okay? Her innocent expression made my heart race. No, it's not bad, but... Inside, part of me was jumping for joy at the idea of spending more time with her, while another part warned that it might not be appropriate. With my heart pounding, the part that wanted to be with Emily won, and I awkwardly prepared another futon at a respectable distance. Normally, this would be easy, but my mind and heart were in overdrive, making the task seem complicated. If you want more space between us, just let me know. And I swear I won't do anything weird. You can even tie my hands and feet if you want. I couldn't even look at her as I said this, but I heard a soft laugh. Looking up, I saw Emily laughing. I'm sorry. You looked so funny, John. But it's okay. I trust you. Thank you. Her words made me push down any inappropriate thoughts. After making sure she was settled in her futon, I turned off the lights. Good night. Good night, John. Hearing Emily's breathing in the darkness made my heart race, and I tightly closed my eyes, trying to dispel any impure thoughts. Don't think about anything. Just sleep, as quickly as possible. Trying not to think about it only made my senses more acute. Just as I considered counting sheep to fall asleep, I felt the futon move slightly. Someone was there, and a trembling hand touched my back. After a moment's hesitation, I slowly turned to see Emily's anxious face in the dim light. Is it okay if I touch you a little? I asked for confirmation, just to be sure. Emily nodded. Seeing that, I gently put my arm around her back. Then, just before touching her, I gently patted her back, saying, "Excuse me." When I was little, whenever I had a scary dream and couldn't sleep, I would sneak into my grandma's bed, and she would pat my back like this. "Your grandma. So you had such a cute childhood, too, right?" "Well, yeah. Thank you. I feel somehow at ease when I'm with you." Emily's words made my heart skip a beat. Isn't this a nice atmosphere? And Emily's words, they felt like, is that so? I feel the same way. It reminds me of my childhood. Max, my dog at home, he would sneak into my bed. We often slept together. Max. Emily giggled as she said this. Like the family dog? I couldn't help but feel I might not be entirely out of the romantic running, but for now. I told myself that helping Emily feel at ease was what mattered most. As I continued to gently pat her back, I heard Emily's peaceful breathing as she fell asleep. Good night, Emily." Of course, there was no reply. Even after confirming she had fallen into a deep sleep, I kept gently patting her back. The next morning, I knew it was morning by the sunlight streaming in and the birds chirping outside. Opening my eyes from the same position as last night, I saw Emily's beautiful sleeping face right in front of me. Honestly, I wasn't composed enough to sleep well with her so close. I was too excited to sleep at all. Despite being sleep deprived, looking at Emily's serene sleeping face, I strongly felt, I want to protect this person. I only have average strength and stamina, but I wanted to do whatever I could for her. As I was thinking this and looking at Emily's sleeping face, her eyes opened. Looking into her unfocused eyes, I greeted her. "Good morning, Emily." Good morning." Still groggy, she echoed my greeting like a parrot, but in the next moment, her eyes popped wide open. Then she sprang up with great force. "John. That is. I'm so sorry about last night. It's all right, really. More importantly, did you sleep well?" Emily's face turned bright red to her ears. "Yes. I slept very well." Her flustered response and the sight of her putting on her glasses while speaking formally to me, her junior, was so cute that I couldn't help but smile. I then conveyed to her what I had decided in my heart. "Emily, please don't carry everything by yourself anymore. I'll do whatever I can to help, so please rely on me." Emily looked up at my words. I could see tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, John." Emily said this, wiping her tears and showing a smile. "Should I walk you to your room? I'm still worried about you after yesterday. I feel bad asking you to go that far, and I had a good rest, so I'll be fine." With that, Emily stood up smoothly. I also stood up. "I'm glad I could talk to you, John. I feel bad relying on my junior, but I hope I can consult with you again." "Thank you so much. See you later." With a smile and a wave, Emily left the room. As I listened to the sound of the door closing, I stood there for a while, recalling the dreamlike time of last night. Still in a dreamy state, the birds chirping outside brought me back to reality, and just as I was about to get ready for a walk outside, it happened. I thought I heard a voice from a bit of a distance. The moment I heard that voice, I had a bad feeling and dashed out of the room, running at full speed towards the source of the voice. "Stop it." Around the corner of the hallway, I saw two figures arguing. "Come on, just a little. Let go of me." My bad feeling turned out to be right. There stood Emily and Aaron. Aaron was grabbing Emily's arm as she struggled. Though her tone was strong, Emily's face was pale. "Let go of Emily," I shouted as I pried Aaron's hand off Emily's arm. Perhaps shocked by my sudden appearance, Aaron's hand easily released Emily. "John." A weak voice escaped from Emily, whom I was shielding behind me. Hearing that voice, anger surged through my body. "John? What are you doing here? Aaron, what are you doing? Forcing yourself on a woman who's clearly saying no is the lowest of the low." I've been angry with Aaron's behavior before, but never have I wanted to punch him in the face as much as I did now. "John? Are you trying to play the knight in shining armor? Don't make me laugh. I'm the son of President Johnson, you know?" From behind me, Emily's voice reached my ears as I faced off against the sneering Aaron. The stalker, it was him," she said, extending her hand towards me. In her trembling hand was a pen with a bear charm that had been on Emily's desk. I looked from the pen to Aaron's face. Aaron was smirking. He stole my personal items from my desk and followed me home, all of it. It was Aaron. Hearing that, I felt my head was about to boil over. So this guy was the one tormenting Emily. I glared sharply at Aaron, condemning him. Being the president's son doesn't give you the right to commit crimes. Do you have any idea how much suffering Emily has been through because of you? But Aaron remained arrogantly unrepentant. What's wrong with managing Emily's belongings and actions? Besides, I arranged this trip, asking my father to make it happen so that shy Emily could come out of her shell. He proudly blabbered about his stalking behavior as if it were for Emily's benefit. That's all your delusion. In reality, Emily is terrified of your actions. Stop stalking her immediately. What? Stalking? What are you talking about? Everything I've done has been a proof of my love for Emily. Right, Emily? You'll accept my feelings, won't you? With a self-absorbed expression, Aaron spoke to Emily. In response, Emily stepped forward to stand beside me. Seeing her determined look despite her trembling hands, I was surprised, but she nodded at me resolutely. I have never had any special feelings for you, Aaron. Your actions have been nothing but a nuisance. Please never do them again. If you do anything more, I will report it to the proper authorities. Facing the culprit, Emily's poised and firm stance was just like her usual self. Aaron's face turned red as he finally realized his misunderstanding. Don't mess with me. You too, making a fool out of me. Do you know what happens if you go against the president's son? I'll get you both fired. I'd heard this line countless times before. Whenever something didn't go his way, he would threaten with demotion or firing. I was fed up with it. That's fine by me. John. What are you saying? Emily, it's enough. If we continue working under someone like him, we'll end up hating the job we used to love so much. It's because of you that I came to love this job. John. Emily looked surprised at my words, and I smiled at her. Emily looked like she wanted to say something, but Aaron interrupted with a triumphant look on his face. You said it. There's no taking it back now. You'll regret it later. I won't regret it. In fact, it's a relief to not have to see your face anymore. Well, fine. You can act tough all you want. Our company won't feel a thing losing someone like you. Satisfied with getting my resignation, Aaron, seeming to have forgotten about pestering Emily, laughed loudly and walked away. Watching Aaron's arrogant retreat, I let out a deep breath. John, were you serious just now? Emily asked in a trembling voice. When I looked at her, the determined expression she had earlier was gone, replaced by a sad and anxious look in her eyes. It's not too late. I can go and ask Aaron to cancel your resignation. Emily. It's okay. I touched her shoulder to stop her from running off. When our eyes met, a single tear fell from her eye. I can't bear the thought of you quitting because of me. Emily started to cry. For a moment, I hesitated, but then I gently pulled her into an embrace. It's not your fault, Emily. It's my decision. I couldn't forgive Aaron's behavior. With Emily crying into my chest, I confessed the feelings I had been holding back. I've always liked you, Emily. That's why I couldn't stand seeing you in pain. I would have regretted it more if I had let Aaron's despicable actions slide. I'm glad I could protect you like this. Emily slowly lifted her face. Her wet eyes met mine. John. Until now, I've always seen you as a cute junior. But after spending the night together and hearing you say I could rely on you, I realized my own feelings. I feel comfortable with you. I don't have to put on a facade in front of you. I feel so at ease. Emily rested her cheek against my chest. I love you too, John. Her words resonated through my body and heart. Hearing the word love from Emily made my heart beat loudly. I can hear your heartbeat, John. Emily. With you by my side, I can do my best. So, please stay with me from now on, okay? Emily's blushing face showed a girlish smile. It was the most beautiful smile I had ever seen on her. The day after we returned from the trip, I headed to Aaron's desk with my resignation letter. When Aaron saw me, he smirked. "John, what do you want?" "As I said yesterday, I'm quitting this company." When I placed the envelope on his desk, Aaron laughed loudly again. "A resignation letter? Just remember, don't come crying to me when you're struggling." "Who's going to be crying?" "What? What are you talking about?" "Obviously, it'll be you." He glared at me, annoyed by my calm demeanor. "Aaron, I'm quitting too. And so am I." In the next moment, voices started to rise from behind me. While Aaron was still confused, envelopes marked with resignation letters were placed one after another on his desk. Finally, a beautifully written resignation letter was placed in front of him. "I'm resigning as well." It was Emily who placed it. Behind us stood more than half of our department. Everyone here had submitted their resignation letters just like me. Aaron, stunned by the sudden turn of events, turned pale as he faced the overwhelming number of resignation letters. "You seemed worried about my future, Aaron, but rest assured. We decided to leave this company and start a new one. Together." Everyone nodded in agreement. Next to me, Emily smiled. After declaring my resignation to Aaron yesterday, Emily and I discussed leaving the company and starting a new one together. I knew that just my resignation wouldn't stop Aaron stalking, so for her safety, I urged Emily to resign as well. At first, Emily was reluctant to quit. I had heard she had a younger sister, but it turned out she was the eldest of 5 siblings, and along with her father, she was supporting the household due to her mother's poor health. That's why, no matter how hard it was, I couldn't quit my job. Hearing her circumstances, I felt a painful tightness in my chest. Thinking of how she had been fighting the fear of Aaron stalking while suppressing her own feelings for the sake of her family nearly brought tears to my eyes. I squeezed Emily's hand tightly and said, "You don't have to endure it anymore. I'm here with you." Emily smiled, relieved by my words. Seeing that smile, I made a vow to myself once again. I will protect this person no matter what. With our resolve to leave the company firm, we went around explaining the situation to our colleagues who had been there since before Aaron's transfer. Most of them, after hearing our story, offered to work with us, leading to today's mass resignation. Leaving a dumbfounded Aaron behind, we headed to the president's office. We intended to inform President Johnson, Aaron's father, and the company president about Aaron's past behavior, his stalking of Emily, and any other offenses, and to demand an investigation and proper punishment. Though surprised by our sudden visit, President Johnson listened intently to our account. After hearing our story, he bowed deeply and apologized. His face had turned pale, and he looked visibly more haggard within a short period. It must have been a shocking report for him as the company president. He promised to conduct a thorough investigation and to impose appropriate penalties on Aaron, as well as on himself. Later, we established our new company and threw ourselves into our work. The busy days flew by as we grew the company, making decisions collectively and sharing ideas actively. Feeling a different kind of fulfillment than before, I realized I really do love this job. One day, we received a phone call at the office. The caller was President Johnson. He informed us that the investigation into Aaron had been completed, and Aaron had admitted to his crimes. President Johnson had personally contacted the police. Aaron was, of course, dismissed and would be monitored henceforth. His father decided not to sever ties but to focus on Aaron's rehabilitation. The company had suffered from the loss of us employees, leading to deteriorated relationships with clients and declining performance. Even though President Johnson personally requested, "Please come back," none of us nodded in agreement. Instead, we promised to assist by forming a business partnership, helping the company rebuild trust. I cannot go back, but I believe we took the best possible action to repay the company for the many years we worked there. This arrangement benefited both companies, and slowly but surely, President Johnson's company began mending its client relationships while we secured new contracts, further boosting our growth. Everyone who once felt burdened by work now worked with smiles on their faces. I was one of them, and John. About the new contract. Seeing her efficiently handling work, I couldn't help but smile. We're at work now. Stop grinning. Emily, now my partner, scolded me sharply. Sorry, but. In our private office, I gently hugged Emily. Tenderly, as if handling something fragile. I just thought how happy I am to see you like this. Oh, come on. Emily laughed softly, exasperated by my words. Are you happy too, Emily? Of course. Her immediate answer made me hold her a little tighter. Emily relaxed from work mode, smiling peacefully in my arms. Her smile was so gentle and calm. It was the most special smile, one she showed only to me. I'm an ordinary guy with no wealth, strength, or special talents. I used to be too scared to stand up to those in power, but that day, I mustered the courage to protect what mattered most to me. Thanks to that, I haven't lost what is most important. I want to continue protecting her, the one who gives me so much courage and strength. For Emily's smile, I believe I can do anything.